Good afternoon, everyone out there in Internet land. My name is Mr. David Brown, and I teach at Brooks Composite High School. I teach science and technology, and today, for my Friday stream, for my wonderful technology and multimedia students, for all students, but realistically, we talk about on this stream more so multimedia and technology. Today is going to be a big day. It's going to be connected to a lot of the current events that are occurring worldwide. And they're tough. They're tough to talk about, but we're going to talk about them. Big thing we're going to talk about first is around storytelling and games that have a good storytelling element, and how we can take that conversation or that element of a game and add it into our classrooms and discuss about certain more challenging contexts. Because a lot of stories in games, let's open this box up. They're very white. They're very white storylines and very white-centric storylines. A lot of that is in the fact that, well, people of color are contributing, I hope, but they are very much old-school fantasy storylines around the hero. And the nice thing is at least the hero can be whatever you want them to be. And so that's really the big start to that discussion, especially around First Nations ways of knowing and utilizing storytelling as a transference of knowledge. How do we decolonize those stories and break them down into a more, I don't know, acceptable is not the right word, but into more of a sense of reconciliation? How do we provide truth, right? The truth and reconciliation piece. I'm under the big impression that we need to provide these opportunities, not just for First Nations people, but all cultures, of providing a truthful and authentic experience to their lives. And games and game development and everything around games and animation can really help here. It can provide outlets for students. It can provide opportunities to have discussion with students and educators and administrators about these types of things. So if you do have the opportunity to play games, or if you know your students are a gamer, you can have these unique discussions. And then you can bring people into the world of games and hopefully use them in your schools and classrooms. So 2 games we're going to play today. Usually I play 3, or, well, usually I play 3. Sometimes it's only 1, sometimes it's 2. 3 has been the staple for the past couple of streams. Today I'm going to focus on 2. 2 games I'm going to play are Divinity Original Sin. That game is huge on story. It is kind of an old school classic RPG developed by Larian Studios, and I'm very excited for their upcoming game, Baldur's Gate 3. So plug to Larian Studios. Next piece of the puzzle, we're going to play Guild Wars 2. And I've been a huge Guild Wars fan since Guild Wars 1. Guild Wars 2 is all story all the time. It's the whole premise behind Guild Wars 2 is this ever-evolving world that evolves along with their story. And so they've released 2 expansions, 1 on the way, but their expansions are very unique because they usually have an expansion storyline and then a living story piece. And so Guild Wars 2 is a very interesting game. It's an MMO. It's developed by ArenaNet, so you can check them out. All right, let's get started. Divinity Original Sin, let's boot it up. I love Larian Studios logo as it comes in. Loading up. Very interestingly enough, I also play with a gamepad, mainly because it is easier to do so. So this is actually very interesting for me, is streaming with a controller in my hands. So I'm looking forward to that. We're going to definitely start a new game. It is clearly single player mode. We're going to keep it on classic. Explorer mode is... What are you going to do for Explorer mode? You got to have the battles and all that fun stuff. I'm not going to go further than that. I love playing the harder modes. I have played, I think I've tried a game on Tactician and it was fine. It's just the combat takes a lot of time. So the game focuses more on the combat piece rather than a story piece. And I like the RPG elements. So those not familiar with role-playing games, Dungeons and Dragons spawned this entire universe of role-playing. And lots of things have broken away from Dungeons and Dragons, but kept some of their kind of rules and how they go about things, such as character classes, and treasure hunting, story. Story is a big piece. So literally right there, hopefully you found that little nugget just attached to it of the fact Dungeons and Dragons is a paper-based game. So what can you do with your students very easily to do storytelling? Well, you can play Dungeons and Dragons, and you can bring in a cultural context to them. Because the beautiful thing with Dungeons and Dragons is it's not just about dungeons, and it's not just about dragons. There's a lot of other things within that. You can go explore old ruins of a civilization to talk about that civilization. You can bring in current populations to discuss issues going on with that population that need to be resolved. And so that's the big thing with role-playing games, is about playing the role, right? You play the role of a character. So in this scenario, as you can see, as soon as we load up, white. And not just focus on that because of what's going on and not just the fact, but that's the point of the stream, is to understand and point out some of these cultural contexts within our games and where attitudes might be spawning from, and understanding that through privilege we should be informing ourselves better to not just take everything at face value. But as you can clearly see, we have very white characters at the prominence. Why would that be? So in terms of marketing and branding, why would you select your opening screen to be 2 white characters, 1 male and 1 female? So in this scenario, obviously too, the female is, in terms of her stature and build, is not a typical female. More in that heroic fashion, neither is the male. Let's be serious here. Like, there's no way I look like that. He's missing a lot of beard, otherwise the muscles are all there, right? Right? No. They're very, but again, it's the world of fantasy. It's the world of the fact that everything here fits that ideal image, and therein lies a huge problem. And this issue has been talked about with games in a lot of different ways. Like, holy man, there are so many issues that have come up with in terms of the ideal image being placed into games. But that's something you can talk about and just discuss, that that's the ideal image. Don't feel like you ever have to be that. But the nice thing is that you can make this character whatever you want it to be. I like games with customization that have the ability to make them a little more natural. But again, it reinforces the discussion. It's a game, right? It's a game. It's a movie. These are things of where these are the ideal, or what people perceive to be. And have that discussion. It's a tough discussion, but it's fine. Okay. Ranger and Shadowblade is a unique composition. So, interesting thing now to talk about the game itself. Divinity Original Sin is a party-based RPG, so a party-based role-playing game. So there's 2 main characters, which is what's very unique, and these 2 main characters interact with each other. There are 2 players that can play at the same time, which is a really cool thing. But in this scenario, it'll just be me controlling both of the 2 main characters. Right here is where you can start talking about story pieces, protagonist and antagonist, and understanding it's usually in a fantasy RPG that good versus evil. And so that immediately starts a discussion about your English language arts curriculum. Alright, don't think we're going to do the Ranger. Rogue, Shadowblade, Wayfarer. I like the Wayfarer. Wayfarer is one of my favorites. Battle Mage is unique, but it's very difficult to play. The Cleric is actually hilarious. It's just really strong. Enchanters are neat, but Enchanters are someone you don't want as your main character. You want them as a party member because they're good at controlling things, not so good at surviving things. And main characters need to survive. Fighter's always good. Inquisitor is really neat. Again, not much. It's an okay main character, lots of damage, and it's a lot of fun because you have more control. You control everybody if you so choose. You can micromanage. Knights are good. Okay. Let's change our guy up. We're going to keep his name. I'm going to stick with the male-female. Traditionally, though, I like to actually have... I play female characters. And it's not like, oh, you're just like ogling the females. No, it's just... I think for me, personally, the way I experience a story is through that strong female character. I present more empathy into... the stories that I play. A lot of books that I read have very strong female characters. Some of my favorite books of all time include David Eddings' series, The Belgariad and the Malorian are 2 wonderful series. And the male character, the main character is male, but there's two very strong supporting females that I really enjoyed their presence in the story because it completes the picture, and so I just really like that. Okay. I find it interesting too. I like their colors. Like, they don't just make it black and white, right? I like the fact that they add in some kind of characteristics to it. So that to me is nice because you can now you'll associate it to kind of culture and color. But the nice thing is that this is something where it's not just white, black, yellow, brown, whatever. It's something with a little bit more interesting flavor, and so I appreciate that. Is that it's not clearly linked to race. It's something that has, like, oh, August Sun, okay, well, he's got a tan. You know, rich oak, oh, okay, that's an interesting color to me of how it's going into that European darker skin tone. So you kind of get the idea, but I think it's really interesting. All right, let's go with burnished bronze. I think that looks nice.
I may have a blade or two that...
Careful now, that's a trap.
Careful now, that's a trap.
Careful now, that's a trap.
Hold! Our enemies have laid a trap.
So, voices, again, not a lot of variety, but it's okay. Oh yeah, okay, we'll go with that. He just looks cool. Kind of looks like a pirate. It's awesome. Yes, you can select your underwear. Interesting thing in the game. I have no idea why. Good job, Valerian. Okay. His portrait. Oh, there you go. That's quick. Portrait now matches, so that's all right. Okay. So he's nice and configured. We're not gonna make him a rogue. I think let's do a wayfarer. I really like the wayfarer. You can customize the skills, and this is where role-playing games, you could spend, probably I could do almost the entire screen on the character creation. I've spent nearly 10 minutes discussing character creation here. I have linked it to a lot of things. I'm going to get started. The nice thing with their presets is that they have things all allocated in statistics. There's a lot of math, there's a lot of choice, and I think that's what's really cool about role-playing games, is embodying choice and understanding you need to make decisions. I'd have to definitely attribute gaming, and role-playing games specifically, in the fact of I can make critical decisions a little bit better, in my opinion, again, personal opinion here, because of these games, because I've had to make them. I've got practice in it. Interesting how we can practice some certain skills, and we can discuss the practice of skills, so that's good. He's all good. All right, we're good there. No, I do not. Okay, there we go. We're not going to pair him with a Shadow Blade. I'm not going to customize my partner at all. Cleric is nice, it's tanky, but I think let's just go with a plain old fighter. A fighter is just a nice thing to have. They're always good things to go with. Sorry, it's a little dusty in here, so if I'm itching my eyes or like sound like I have a raspy voice, etc. All right, let's get going. Yeah, I'm done. Let's do this.
In the days of old, the sorcerers
All right.
of Riverlong cured the sick and healed the wounded through a great power.
Primer
called
for the
Source.
story.
But a terrible darkness invaded the land, and Source was forever tainted. The sorcerers who once healed now only destroy, and madness has overtaken them. A few brave Source hunters are all that stand between Riverlon and the dark power that threatens to destroy it. Wherever Source appears, hunters follow.
Alright, so straightforward. Alright. So here's where things come in instantly with games. I am really bad, and I can guarantee a lot of students
Shine, Master Source Hunters. The cam wants you up on
skip this stuff.
Hear them calls? Means we're close to shore. I don't ever you go in there, Master Source Hunters. City's full of undead, hungry enough for blood. But you're supposed to investigate that murder, ain't you? They say it's Source that did the Counselor in. Source in a city like Sicil, nowhere safe anymore. Here they are, Captain Sir.
God's blessings on you, hunters. You'll be happy to hear we've reached Sicil. But there's trouble offshore, so we'll have to sail in carefully. Here, have a look. Those are orc ships, and they're blocking our passage. We'll get you as close to the city as we can, and drop you off on the beach. Be wary now. Orcs are on the attack. Undead have closed every route out, and there's a sorcerer on the loose. If we're to get justice for the Counselor, you'll have to keep your wits about you. May the luck of the gods be with you both, Source Hunters.
There you go. So that gives you a little bit. Again, I am so bad at skipping all of this stuff. I think that's actually the first time where I've watched that completely through. I love that from an animation perspective. That right there is a grease pencil style animation, 2 dimensions, that has so much depth, beautiful voice interaction with that. That would have taken a lot of time. A lot of time to figure out. Alright, so beautiful video lends us into what we're going to be doing. It gives us an idea of what the story is, right? So letting the game tell the story is important. So we're on the beach. Why are we on the beach? Well, something clearly happened. I like the fact that there's just little nuggets, right? It's the lead in. It's the stuff that, okay, we got to go through this. So now, if you were someone teaching about story, you can go in and talk about the components of story. Right? I'm not an English teacher, so I'm not going to spend some time and mess up all the terminology and all the students going, well, I learned about this on Mr. Brown's stream, and this is what he said. I'll be like, no, that's probably wrong, because I haven't taught English in probably 4 years, so don't look at me for that stuff. But in this scenario, you could easily talk about how we've got the beginnings of a story and what parts come next. You can ask questions about it. And now I can play in and I can go, okay, what's next? Where do I go? Well, I know I'm supposed to find a city and I got dropped off late. Clearly there's a skull. And this is why I love this. This is something where I can literally interact with so many different things. This is a type of old school RPG game where you need to explore and interact with all of the things around you. If you don't, you might miss something, and it might make something harder.
I'd mistake this for a placid beach.
At least the orcs make a bit of noise when they attack. It's dark-dealing sorcerers that'll strike with neither warning nor mercy.
Okay, so now we know a little bit about these sorcerers, and we are source hunters. How do I know? Because, well, that's what we were told. So, what does this mean in terms of storytelling? But now let's put this into a little bit of a cultural context. Is now the sorcerers are the outsiders. They are the outcasts, and they are apparently evil. And what way I play these games is, well, and especially too, it's pretty. This game, it gets pretty cut and dry, who's good and who's not. But I love types of games. Grim Dawn was a game I was considering playing today because you start out as someone who is on the side of bad, right?
Did you expect it to have an entourage?
The dialogue between two things is hilarious, by the way. Different items always make for it. Again, I can pick up shells. Trying to remember all the buttons. There's map. There we go. Inventory. Okay, so this is a big thing in terms of role-playing games, is notice if I don't really understand, look in your inventory. Now look at this. Look at this reading. There's a reading that has to happen. I'm reading a book. Right? I am understanding some of the base story, and if you're like, hey, I wasn't done reading that, I'm sorry. I wasn't done reading it either. But the nice thing is that now I can read about pieces of what's there. I love the fact that this game, they do a lot of the storytelling through books that you pick up, and so you have to read them. So the Traveler's Journal is hilarious. This is someone who decided to think they could soar like an eagle, and he decides to jump off a cliff, and clearly does not work well. What's really interesting about this one is that if you're a junior high teacher, would be a nice fit here, would be the fact that you've got good words, good word uses such as whimsical. So now you have a discussion about vocabulary. You have a discussion about sentence structure. So there's lots of commas in here, so you can talk about comma usage. The other piece of it is that this is experimentation. So right here, you have someone who's attempting an experiment. Is this a good experiment? Why is it not a good experiment? What was their kind of, well, I loosely use the word hypothesis. I hate using the word hypothesis because it's usually a prediction, right? We preface a lot of the learning science with a question rather than a statement, because a statement is very tough to figure out, where a question we look for an answer. A hypothesis is just fine if that's the terminology you use, but be very careful in how you direct that with your students. So now I've got exclamation points, and if you play World of Warcraft, you know that we're supposed to talk. And here's the cool thing.
Can you believe this? The man jumped off a cliff at the behest of some statues, of all things.
Now we have an interaction between our characters, and this is the one thing I love about this game. It happens in other RPGs, but not as frequently anymore. Mainly just because of the way the role-playing game has morphed more into MMOs. It's coming back, which I'd love to see, is the fact that MMOs are slowing the decline. Just pure RPG is on the incline, which I like, but this is an interaction between characters, and now I can kind of jump into that role. What values do I have? And this is where you can have now that self-reflection, right? If I'm truly embodying the role of a character in a role-playing game and telling that story, right? So how do we model that storytelling in terms of understanding First Nations ways of knowing? This is a piece, right? Because in terms of First Nations ways of knowing, how do you determine values? How do you determine understanding and systems and processes? A lot of those are linked through story, right? It's all about understanding and reflecting upon yourself and going, okay, how do I connect to that information that's been given? How do I listen? And so now I can have that, right? So while great deeds require the occasional leap of faith, I myself might have done the same. I don't think so, right? For me, personally, I just go, that's pure madness. I think it's Balderdash.
How could someone be so utterly naive?
If you have, I forgot to put an AI personality on. If you link artificial intelligence to the other source hunter in this scenario, they will respond automatically. This is something I could get to control the conversation. So this is really interesting. But because of the way she started, I'm just going to keep that train going.
Cool.
And now we are pragmatics. Now you can have a discussion about what pragmatism is. Good luck. Another crate. Ooh, I got a lucky find. I don't know what that is. That's the first time that's ever happened to me, so that's exciting. So how do I know that I'm going the right way? Well, part of it, and especially with role-playing games, and this is another thing that I really appreciate, and why this is more a conversation with younger groups, and why Minecraft I think is good. I've really fallen off that train. I used to be really big into utilizing Minecraft, but I think just let's open that up and go games, not just one, but let's explore a plethora of games. And so exploration is key. I have to look around. I have to have patience. So I'm learning in patience of like, okay, where do I go? I don't know where to go. Well, I know I came from this way, so logic dictates I'm not supposed to go that way, so I should press forward, right? The mini-map up at the top is very helpful, so I can't really showcase it, but you can see the spinning area in the upper right-hand corner. That, if it's black, that's an area I haven't explored before, so I know I should probably go towards that. So I haven't done the area that's down over here, so we can go that way as well. I love the immersion. I love the fact that there's height to this game. So it's a top-down-ish kind of isometric, maybe more kind of almost straight top-down. The camera is in a very unique position style of RPG, but the vertical atmosphere, like there's height to this, and it's just so beautiful. And also the dissolve works very well in this game. So notice, just under a bridge, and I'm back at the same staircase. So obviously the staircase is the place I'm supposed to go. Let's find out. Hint, I've played this game before. And now we fight. And this is something, again, why I chose this game. And I love this game for it. And I get really wrapped up in this game. Now we've met clearly someone who is an evil character or an antagonist. They have done something very bad. They're summoning some undead. And off she goes. Alright. Now we get to fight. So in terms of this, you can, it's, again, I'm sorry, why I liked it and chose this game was because it has turn-based combat. So it's something where there's more strategy involved. So now, again, decision making. So now, not only is this overarching concept of storytelling, sorry, I want to focus on this point, not only is the overarching concept storytelling, now that objective is paramount. It's the top primary objective in our lesson plan. But now, look at the next step. What's the next thing you're going to discuss with critical thinking, analytical thinking, tactics, strategy? Boom. Within the first 2 minutes of the game, we now have to make decisions. And now that's a skill that we're looking for. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that as we keep going. It's about skill and skill acquisition, not just knowledge, right? We can know what storytelling is. We can write that down on a test, but to actually apply that knowledge and develop and be able to tell a story, being able to make decisions and think critically and analytically, I can use those skills and I can transfer those skills into all subject areas, right? Being able to write a story, if that is my passion, right? If you have someone who's that introverted student, and this is not all introverted students are storytellers. Don't paint me in that. I'm not stereotyping or generalizing here. I'm just saying like that's someone who could be, but that's paint a word picture here, right? So that student that's in the corner that's writing all their stories, we can engage that student in more, right? Oh, I hate math. Math is stupid. I just like writing stories. I hate science. It's too hard. I just want to write stories. Engage that student now. Tell them how they can now use their knowledge of storytelling to solve problems. How can they write a story about this piece, right? How could they develop this environment? Like they can create that, again, word picture. I like to use that a lot. Create a word picture. Create the visualization. So that's important. Just about picked up a mouse and keyboard. That's not going to help me much. Okay, so now I need to take action. I can fire my crossbow, or I can do other things, right? So I can use my actions. I have to, again, try and remember which keys are which. So I will prefer to summon a spider. Let's do. Yeah, let's put him up here.
Venomous sister, attack!
Boom. Really cool spider model. Ooh, they do such a good job. Alright, this is a cool thing with the warrior in this circumstance. I can charge in. I'm gonna mow some peeps down. Boom!
I like this game.
So, now you've probably seen some numbers floating up. Interesting. Now, based upon our math skills, I can determine what actions to take next. So, all the green and red dots at the bottom, I have one action point, right? Sorry, I had 4 action points. So now I have 1. I have 1 remaining. It takes 3 to do this. Can I do this? Can I do this action? No, I can't. The math tells me so. So again, just a little math practice that people don't understand. And again, when combat, especially like tactician mode, you have to manage that a whole bunch, is understanding, okay, I have this many action points. These are the things I want to accomplish. How many things can I accomplish within that list? And it's all a series of logic, right? So now it's in my turn. Go Gadget Spider. Get in there, Spider. Spider is actually very intense. They're very strong. So that's why I like playing the Wayfarers. They're a little bit of a healer, but they also are things. Okay, we're now. Okay, so how many action points do I have? I have 6. All right. So this one takes 5 to use. It's Ricochet. So what's going to do is going to hit multiple targets. Interestingly, in this one, I'm curious if it's going to hit other things. That's okay. Okay, so that's good. Not friendly fire in that scenario. Okay, no action points remaining. End turn. Alright, so now my fighter is ready. Let's get that. So that's just more power. This just looks cool, so I'm just going to use it. Boom.
I invoke the power of the giants.
Big fist. So as you can see, like lots of big knockdowns with the fighter. Controlling is important, especially if playing higher levels of difficulty. In this game, you do want to kick someone when they're down. You do more
Their
damage.
leader said something about escaping with a stone.
Stolen from this dungeon, I imagine. Can we get inside?
Ah, interesting. So now here's a neat thing. I can continue on, or I can explore. The dungeon is something that I prefer to do, so that's good. Okay, it was the wrong one. No, back actually, there we go. I would like to use first aid. And I'm going to provide some coolest first aid kit ever. Have you ever used a first aid kit in class or in any situation? You know first aid kits do not do cool, glowy blue magic. We need to fix that. Alright, someone get on that. That'll be cool. Alright, now we're going to have a conversation.
Were more than petty criminals. Their leader gave life to the dead. What stone could they have been so keen on taking?
I am an
Can't well
explorer,
turn
so let's
away
do
from
that.
such an odious show of source.
I'm going to
Indeed.
agree because I can. It's nice with the AI. The AI makes it a little more interesting for the conversations, but I'm an explorer. Let's go. I'm a wayfarer, right? I like to travel. I want to do these things. So now, in this scenario, we're in a dungeon. There's not a dragon here. Haha. But now we can start exploring, and we learn more skills. The nice thing with this is a little bit of tutorial. We have a locked chest. What can I do? So it's locked. Can't do anything with it. What should I look for? Well, candles aren't going to help. Okay, actually there is. So, no keys, no anything. Again, exploring is helpful. Patty Cake Volume 2. That sounds like that'd be a hilarious read to read at some point. I have not picked that up at all. So this is where exploration helps. Like, okay, how in the heck can I get this chest open? Okay. Let's take a look at this. Maybe nothing in there. Was it in the other one? Interesting. Okay. I have this button that says actions. Like, what actions can I take? You mean I can hit it? You bet I can. So, there is a skull. So I picked up the skull. There's also a two-handed bow that dropped. So if I had a person that used a bow, got some items. So again, problem solving. And this is a unique thing that is about this dungeon and why this dungeon will be exactly what I play before we move on to Guild Wars 2. Now I've got crates. I can't walk through them. In this game, I cannot jump. So what do I got to do? Well, I have to figure out what to do. The tutorials aren't showing up because I have played this game before, so I should know what I'm doing. But when I'm close enough to the crate, I can pick it up. Right? And then it's in my inventory. So this is one way to solve a problem. Okay? And I can drop it. And I just set my crate down. Boom. Alright. What other thing can I do? I can pick it up. Makes sense, right? That's a logic action. What about move? Now I can direct that because I got a little bit of magic, right? So there's two ways of doing that. That's what I love about this game. I can move things around. Okay, nothing in that one. Nothing in that one. Water balloon, very helpful actually. Wooden stake, also very helpful. Again, notice. RPG games, you have to go through everything painstakingly. My patience does not lend itself well.
Careful, there's a mine in the middle of our path.
I don't know if I've mentioned it on stream before, but being an adult with ADHD, gaming has really helped me understand some coping mechanisms so that I can have a little bit more patience. I've developed understanding of certain things, how I solve problems and certain other things. Okay. Secrets of the Scroll, Volume 4. I read Patty Cake when I'm out of the dungeon. Okay, I got a mine in the way. What can I do with it? Well, I can walk around it. Very clearly there's enough space, but This is scary to me. Maybe I can disarm it. Nope, don't have the skill to disarm. I'm not a rogue. Okay, so I can't do that. Well, what if I back up a bit, take my barrel, and throw it on top of the mine? Now my mine is gone. Except this is the other cool thing. I now have burning barrels, so there's now fire on the ground. Can I walk through the fire? No, that would be bad. Now the fire is gone. And I love the fact that things burn out. I could have used my water balloon to put out the fire. So again, problem solving. Love it. Just so much in this game. It's pretty fascinating, and then you start to think about, okay, what does it take to make this game? How would this work? And now clearly I have a team key, so I want to make sure I get the key. This is stuff. Zoom in. Alright, got the key. Don't use candles. Unlock. I got a knife. It's potion bottles. Potion bottles are good. Zoom out. So again, exploring, noting all the black areas or places I haven't seen yet. We can actually rotate the camera too. I haven't been doing
I've
that.
always heard there's typically more to a king's tomb than meets the eye.
It could be a myth, or it could be our lucky day.
Bones, surprisingly, are useful. There's things you have to do with them. So we picked up a parchment. I'm not going to worry about the mushroom. I'm not going to get to a point where I can make too crazy of potions. So, back to my inventory. Now I have to read the parchment. Right? So, Gravekeeper, tend the graves in the antechamber. Oh, more vocabulary. We can talk about vocabulary. Now, it provides me with a hint. If you're impatient, and if you're kind of that old action-y gamer, where you're just like, let's go, let's go, let's go, you're not going to look for those types of things. RPGs are wonderful in the circumstance that you get to just calmly go through things, read. It's honestly like living a story, living a movie. I really like that.
What's this? I found something.
Oh, hey, I found something. Surprisingly, I already read about it, so there we go. Nice thing is I can go back and take a look. Again, hints don't show up. I know that space select is my map, so my map is fine. Alright, moving forward. Let's keep delving in this dungeon. Again, vocabulary, love it. Locked. What am I going to do? Alright, I'm going to actually now switch. So, character. Oh, I guess I should have done this. So, nothing going on there. Oh, I have traits that I can set. Oh, sorry, not traits that I can set. Traits. So this is where I'm now on the independent side rather than the obedient side. So this gives you kind of what character you are and how others interact with you. So if you are not a very nice person, people will interact with you as if you were not a very nice person. So that's one thing I do, again, really like about this game. Oh, I forgot to showcase one of my talents. This is why I like the Wayfarer as well. It has this particular talent that I can do something. Come here, mouse. I can talk to animals.
They say the matriarch of my clan was the first to sample the mummified flesh of the last Source King.
Nothing useful. However, I can talk to all of them. And they're cute little stories in here, but that's where if you know what traits you have, you can figure out certain accents. Okay, we got a locked door still. So we didn't find a key, right?
Lockpick or hammer.
Okay, so I'm gonna switch to Scarlet. She's gonna hit the door. Mainly because she hits a lot harder than I.
We made short work of that door, but I don't imagine our weapons would survive such use for long.
Again, so I should have looked for a key. There actually is a key out there somewhere. I should have found it, but that's fine. I can break things down. But now it tells me about things. Okay. Fire resistance potion. That sounds like it might be useful. So we're continually exploring, going down the stairs. Without a care in the world. And we got a rain scroll. Wonder what a rain scroll does. Probably something to use this one. Here's a neat thing. If you don't figure out rain scrolls, there's again other things placed in the environment to help you solve the problem. That was a water barrel. There is also a water barrel out there, right? This is a water barrel. So what can I do with a water barrel and a whole bunch of fire? I also just picked up a rain scroll. What do you think I can do with that? So again, problem solving. This is a, oh man, I should have played this game earlier. RPG is just, mwah, beautiful. Beautiful in the things that they can teach our kids. With conversation, mind you. Because if you think about this, if you put, say a grade 6 student, someone who would actually understand some of these things, not that grade 3, 4, 5 students couldn't, and I would know some high school students that might not understand this or have the patience for it. But in this scenario, if you actually sat down and have a discussion with a student, they get more of that experience, and now there's teachable moments, and you start going through those teachable moments. Discuss story, how it relates to First Nations concepts. You are the guiding force of this, right? So if anyone, oh, I should have shown off I Heart Public Education shirt. Beautiful. So in that scenario, this is why we need teachers, why we need people to help guide the learning and help guide the understanding of these things. Because if you put a student in front of this game, what are they going to focus on? The combat. Why? Because it's cool. Also, too, I would guarantee most students that are gamers are not going to play this type of game. So if you expose them to this and have those conversations, I know a lot of people that have started playing RPGs and different games based on conversations, right? All right, so we've got a scenario where we have this melee person, so someone who's with a sword, vocab, ooh, look at me go, is not going to be able to do this. However, I have a crossbow. So let's fire away, shall we? And now I've broken the water barrel. And what has the water barrel done? It's put out the fire. Except, here's another thing I love about this game. What has it created? It has created steam. It didn't just put the fire out magically and done nothing. It's now created steam, and now steam also has effects, right? So with terms of steam, it's hot, so it does still hurt. So that's the scenario there, is that now I can't just walk through the steam. I have to wait until the steam dissipates. So that's another one fun thing. Let's go into my inventory. I'm going to cast the rain spell. It covers a lot of ground, by the way.
Water rain down! I need to dry off.
So, rain takes care of fire and creates a little less steam, and the reason is, well, it should. The nice thing, because it's consistent, it's not the fact that you're not just putting water on fire and all of a sudden you're just getting steam. It's continual water, so notice that we're still getting wet. Wet, if I were attacked by lightning, water is a very good conductor of electricity, I take more damage. So interesting interactions and a little bit of science going on. Let's explore this area.
Our enemies have laid a trap.
So there's a trap there. Mr. Skeleton, do you have anything? No? But there is a trap disarm toolkit. And let's see. Now let's use it. Poof! Okay. Locked. Locked ornate chest. Now, this is the funny thing. This is like logic dictates that the vase, or vase, depending on pronunciation, sorry about that, the vase behind it would not contain a key. Why would I check that for a key? There are definitely illogical moments in games, and that's the fun part. What's life without a little whimsy, right? So I get a little armor and a poison arrow. So as you can see, the steam is dissipated. I'm gonna go get my lockpicks over here. Again, exploration, having to find certain things is really important. You talk to the rat. Come back here, rat.
Oh, Oh, how nice to meet your acquaintance. We rats may be small, but that makes it all the easier to keep our ears to the ground. Friendly-wise, I'd say we rodents are the best friends an adventurer can make.
Interestingly enough, also all rats sound the same. Not surprised. Okay, zoom in. Let's find those lockpicks. Okay, they're on the ground there. So notice that you have to manipulate the camera. Again, something
This seems to be broken.
Right, it does seem to be broken.
Under lock and key.
Now, they make it easy. So once you start, they showcase the fact that there's over on the side. Those things. Let's move. So, problem solving, but not that bad. With the rust, I wish there was something that they would do with the rusty lever, and the fact that you have to find something either in the chest or in one of the crates, where you have to get rid of the rust, and then that sparks a conversation of like how you can actually get rid of rust. I think that would have been neat. Moving right along. All right. Really gross gas clouds. Can I walk through them? No. How do I know that? Because I tried. And I died. And dying is not great.
What's this I've spotted?
Okay, so it tells me that I spotted something. So that's the nice thing, is I'm seeing things. So, what do you think I can do? Well, I'm going to go through this a little more quickly. I'd like to show you all of this dungeon in the time that I'm playing. So I put that. So again, problem solving skills. Oh, I can't move that far, so we have to use one from over here. Well, gee, that makes sense. There we go. So again, rewarded with my efforts. I should check all that stuff. Yeah, no, there probably is something in there.
I think I hear voices downstairs.
Okay, voice
The
downstairs.
last thing we need is to surprise another angry summoner.
I'm a rock. Sneaking in this game is actually hilarious. So now I'm sneaking so that I can get further down.
I feel uneasy here. I better keep my weapon at the ready.
Okay, I want to try and get that fireball scroll. And do. So it's a unique take. Usually stealth, you kind of get more transparent. Oh, no heat or flame in this place. So that's a little hilarious. In my inventory, I now have what? A fireball scroll, and my fireball scroll. Okay, target's a little too far, so I have to sneak a little closer. Do. Okay. Oh no. Well, that's just a boo-boo. That's okay. Go into my inventory. Run, little ratty, get out of there. Okay, good. Could have saved myself some time there. Didn't have to do it that way, but there you go. That's all done. Okay, he's down. Oh, he's not quite. He'll probably burn out. So let's provide a shield because he can shoot. There you go. Again, I could have saved myself some time there if I had done that successfully through the sneak, but oh well, what do you do? Right, now there's fire on the ground. Do I want to walk in the fire? No. I can still pick up my gold from afar. Ah! Oh. Thank you, Focus Assist. Thank you, Norton Antivirus, for wanting to keep me safe. I appreciate that. Even though it doesn't. Okay, can I leave anything over here? Nope. All good. Alright. So we're making good progress. Again, so many things that we could be talking with our students about stories. So I've kind of woven the first two in here, and I really hope I've done a good service to the First Nations ways of knowing, because that is very important to me as an educator. Part of that truth and reconciliation, part of an ally of First Nations and First Nations culture. Coming from Saskatchewan originally, I grew up a lot around First Nations, and going to school at the University of Regina, we do have a lot of interactions with elders and First Nations, and I came to really understand. I grew up in a very small community, and in that small community, there's a lot of racism. There's no other word that can describe it, and a lot of it just has to deal with the fact that I think a lot is through education, not just because through teachers. It's just educating people about culture and belief, and understanding differing beliefs are good, and that provides variety, and through variety we can solve problems in unique ways, right? And I got to know a knowledge keeper very well while I was at the University of Regina, and it really opened my eyes and helped me really appreciate First Nations ways of knowing and First Nations culture, and how deeply connected I personally am to it. I love the connections to nature. I understand and appreciate the use of nature in so many different ways, and that really resonated with me. And so I have transformed quite a bit in terms of the way that I deal with things. But how do you deal with that systemic racism? And I think part one is education, and that's part of what the stream is all about. The other big thing, and why I went with storytelling and tapping the First Nation ways of knowing, is because I teach technology, and a lot of educators out there talk about, how can I put this subject into First Nations material? There's no way I can talk about Métis, Inuit. I don't know anything about that. How am I supposed to tie math or technology or science courses into those things? I think part of it is the fact that we, again, and this is my big thing and why I'm really hoping to develop culture of skill, is we focus so much on knowledge. Knowledge is power, knowledge is good. We need to have the knowledge to develop some understanding. But what about the skills? What skills are involved, right? Storytelling is something that every subject area can do. If you want to start somewhere, those cultures are huge on story and transference of knowledge through story, and allowing their young to embrace the story and explore and learn through those methods, right? And then teaching the facts as we weave them in through story, and understanding that there's metaphor and simile and those types of things where we can go, okay, this is like this, what else do you see is like that, right? Discussions of nature, bringing in discussion of nature into those things, utilizing nature as a topic, the environment, the land, the connection to the land, those aren't facts. Those are things that are heavily colonized and things we do need to decolonize. But in terms of a lot of circumstances, if you're more comfortable in the colonized piece, take that little bit of understanding, reflect upon it, recognize that your knowledge is colonized, and start to decolonize it with the students. Right? If you understand farming and agriculture, that is a huge connection to the land. But all you really know is how a farm runs, right? You know, I got to plant seed using this machine, I got to do this. Take that and start to decolonize it with your students. Like, okay, ask those questions. How can we? Why can we? Who can we? And start to look out for knowledge keepers and elders and try and bring them in. They're very difficult to get at, and that's unfortunate, very, very unfortunate. Another key component is language. Storytelling links directly to language. Many First Nations languages are being lost. So what better thing can we do than incorporate language into these things, right? We were playing this game, I'm going through vase. What's the Cree word for vase? What's the Blackfoot word for vase, right? We can look those things up, we can make those connections, we can make those ties. That vocabulary exercise is very colonized, very, rigid schooling, but if that's what you know, right, maybe that's what we run with. I think the biggest message there is do something, not nothing. I'm guilty of it too. I can definitely say that I'm guilty of it. This is something I've been planning on doing for the longest time and just honestly didn't have the courage. Didn't have the courage to come out and say, okay, this is my opinion on this. This is how I can connect to First Nations. This is my first day on true truth and reconciliation. I've done other activities and I'm very proud of those. Again, I'm proud of those. Why haven't I discussed those? Why haven't I done some of those activities again? A lot of it is we get stuck in the colonial way of schooling, especially with diploma exams. That makes for a very interesting thing. If those of you watching don't know what diploma exams are, they are standardized tests that we write in grade 12. There's other standardized tests at different grades here in Alberta, but those ones specifically. All right, now I have to solve a problem. I got 2 plates. I got click and click, and they don't do anything. So what do you think I should do? Again, a problem-solving exercise. I have all of this stuff around here. You think I can, I don't know, put one of those on there? Okay, so I've proven if I hit both buttons at the same time, it opens. Let's see what happens when I step off. It closes. Alright. Again, this is something I love about RPGs, is now the problem solving. There we go. So, again, through problem solving, understanding all of these things. This is nice. Lots of good stuff. Crafting becomes a big thing later on. Notice I can interact with the brazier here. Or brazier, depending on your... I guess brazier
seems
is
to be broken. Not
the appropriate one. Coal basket, I like that. Brazier. You can clearly tell I teach high school. It didn't even flinch. So... moving right along. Okay. This is locked. There's a plate here. Ooh, that plate opens that door, not this door. Notice nothing else is around here that I can pick up and put on top of this. In the coal basket I can't. I know that for a fact. So, this is a cool thing. I can now break my party up. I can switch to Scarlet, and Scarlet is the one that can walk around. So this is a unique party mechanic. This is why party RPGs are interesting, because they always come with kind of unique problems. Right? So this door is now open. That door can close because I'm already through it. So now we're both through. And let's group back together. Saving. Autosaves always indicate in RPGs that a big event is happening, that you probably could die. That's not good. So let's move on. Nice big tomb. Uh-oh. Big event.
A living rat dares disturb the slumber of the dead? A thieving fool insults the sanctity of the grave. The bloodstone defiler, where is it? I suppose you only crept among these sacred tombs for leisure. I suppose you had no lust for the treasure of the dead. Ha! Strange indeed. Robed indeed. Your tricks will not save you from retribution, deceiver. The bloodstone, run if you like, defiler.
I love the voiceovers. I was just letting him do the talking. All right, back into combat mode. So we've got an archer over here, and an archer over here, and we've got a guy with a big sword. All right. So typically my strategy, and now again I'm gonna get my spider going because my spider is amazing. Spider time. Go, go, gadget, spider! There you go. Spider out. So, I typically use my ranged person, whether it be a spellcaster or clearly crossbow or bow, to focus on the ranged. And I'm going to get my warrior to tank this guy and keep him company. That's pretty standard fare. I love battering ram, it's such a fun skill. Go! Can't knock down. because he had a save against it. Now this is where the math component and the Dungeons and Dragons component is, because now there's dice rolls, and you can talk about dice rolls with your students, and you can actually perform some of these things and go, okay, if I get this specific sequence of roll or numbers and I add them up and it comes to this, and their resistance against knockdown is 30 and my rolls add up to 25, have I got more enough? Do I have enough knockdown to beat their knockdown resistance? I don't. So now it has that logic component. Programming. This is a great exercise for programming, is in terms of an event. A dice is rolled 3 times, and it's added up these 3 numbers, and then you can compare it against something. So now you have that comparison. If this number is greater than or less than, now you can output a message. So you have an input with the dice, you have a process in terms of adding, and then you have an output component. So nice basic exercise that you can do from a programming perspective. Sorry, off topic with storytelling and stuff, but yeah, I teach technology, so you have to look at that. Now we want to make sure that we attack, and we're good. Spider gets to go. Spider is not as useful against undead because most undead are for poison. So let's just end his turn. Are immune to poison, so not the greatest. Good job, Spider. Nice work, Scarlet. Like that. Okay, I like to use Ricochet. Is not super helpful, but it's a high-powered attack.
For you!
Did not anticipate that to Ricochet so far. I will take it. That was impressive. Okay, apparently Ricochet is really strong now. Ricochet used to not be that strong. It must have been updated. Again, that's a neat thing about this game, is I'm playing this for...
Death never dies.
Play this lots.
Death in 1,000 forms rules all.
What do you mean I didn't win? Plot twist. Now there's all these items lying on the ground. Let's get rid of those. So, alright. Don't have much going on here. Don't need any healing. Let's just attack. Get him, Scarlet.
I need another chance.
Missed. Luckily, I have 3 attack power left. Go. I should have put melee power stance on. Not a big deal, though. Spider's gonna... Oh, come on, Spider. Let me down, Spider. So chill there. Okay. Fire. Good stuff. So now we can pick up our reward. Bye, Spider. Don't forget the key. I have done that before. Not good.
Here lies Master Ragequin's second apprentice, killed by dying.
Larian Studios always has these like really hilarious little quips. So that's why exploring is fun too. Love that.
Here lies Master Ragequin's first apprentice, killed by a falling corpse.
So hilarious, and this one just one opposite. Alright. So, we've defeated the Wraith. We have determined that, or Lich or whatever he was, we've determined that he no longer has this thing called the Bloodstone. So now, we have more understanding of the source component. So we've met somebody, we've found a item of importance, and welcome to standard fantasy storytelling. We now have the main quest, and now there's a connecting piece. And so a lot of role-playing and fantasy stories always have these connecting components, and that's where logic skills are super developed in fantasy literature, because you always are deducing, right? Just like a mystery novel, maybe any novel, I'd have to say. I shouldn't really kind of generalize that. Now that I think about it, I read fantasy almost specifically, in science fiction are my 2 favorite genres, but I can imagine in any genre, realistically, there's all these little things where you need to deduce and analyze, and that goes into one of my biggest context in terms of using story to transfer knowledge and developing English language arts and social studies, should I say social studies, social, critical analytical skills. Games are so good at all these things. Okay, so I came out, and then I'm smart enough. Action behind you, but I want those bracers. So it's just saying that you're going back to where you started, dude. We're good. Alright, plodding right along after coming out of my cave and going, huh, there's something going down. We run into...
Hold it right there, orc scum! No one slips past the Legion unchallenged.
Alright, now, in terms of storytelling, orc scum. Now, what do you think about the orcs? Right? So, there's now this connection of language to the context of what we believe of the orc. They're scum. They clearly are attacking something, so they're bad. Right? So now I'm building these connections and I'm forming my opinion of this particular culture. Very interestingly, look what happens in society. We take bits and pieces from different things and we form what our perception is.
Calm down, Junius. Doesn't look like one of them orcs to me.
Just hold your tongue, will you, Bibius? Can't be too careful.
So,
you know what?
The wizard, you say? Sounds good to me.
Agreed.
Capital.
I'm just going through that quickly. Mainly, I would like to get to Guild Wars 2 for us, so we can talk about the other topics of the day. Now's probably a good time to change. That was actually a perfect stopping point, a good discretionary point. As we continue, we go on to the city of Syceal, and now we start solving a mystery. And so now, again, problem solving, critical thinking, we have to start puzzling these things together and doing a little detective type work. It's actually very challenging. The detective work is very challenging. So for those that have never played it before, I definitely get it. So I'm gonna save this one. I like this setup. All right. So there is Divinity Original Sin, and how role-playing games provide a perfect platform for the discussion and development of a lot of base skills. A lot of things you can have in your classroom around these things. It's like, okay, when you go home and play Call of Duty tonight, think about this, right? Come back and tell me. Write a journal entry about that. Tell me a quick story about that. Part of one of my 30 level classes in my Science 30 class, so General Sciences, in a biology piece, I get them to write a story. It's a formative exercise, but it's a different note-taking piece. It's something to get them writing. It's starting to get them use terminology in a different context. But I had one student that was like, can I write about like a military mission? Sure, why not? You're passionate about that stuff. Tell me about it. And then he wrote it, and it was very Call of Duty-esque, where it was I'm running around and shooting everybody, and boom, I'm this red blood cell that owns the universe. So that's okay. Oh, I think we got a little hiccup in connection. That's fine. We'll fix it. Pause to catch up. There we go. We're back. Okay, so as I was saying, I had a student that wrote about this, and it was a lot of Call of Duty, boom, pow, pow, pow. And so I sat down and just had a conversation with him. I'm like, well, where's the biology component? Talk to me about making the connection to the concepts. He's like, well, what about this and this? And he's like, what about the red blood cell, instead of it being the main character and it going basically killing everybody, because that's not what red blood cells do. Well, what if it's about a raft, and now I put a white blood cell is someone that's trying to find invaders, and they're on a scouting mission. I'm like, there you go. Now, I still talk to the student about that, and he's like, I still remember some of that stuff. Power of storytelling. Power of story. Guild Wars 2. Speaking of the power of story, Guild Wars 2. Beautiful game. I will hazard the fact that my computer may crash. They have fixed a lot of things with Guild Wars 2, but definitely not all of them, so I'm a little worried, but I hope this works out. I haven't played in a little while. We're going to delete this character. Oh. I love being able to name characters. Okay, I think we're okay. We look okay. Very fortunately, I have 2 level 80 characters. But let's make a new one. Because making new characters for stream is fun. Okay, so the interesting thing about Guild Wars and the story behind Guild Wars is there is a cultural conflict built into the game, which is why I do like it and why I chose it, is because you have very distinct races within this universe. And these, you'd think, well, hey, well, they're all hero things and typical fantasy stuff. They all get along and everyone's hunky-dory. They don't get all get along. Guild Wars does a very good job of making it not as dark as it could be and not as much conflict as there could be, because they all are trying to work together. But the humans do not like the Char. The Norn don't really like anybody. They're kind of their own stoic, we're huge, so we're better than anyone. Same with the Asura. They're like, we're super duper smart, so back off. And the Sylvari are kind of your neutral. They're your people in the middle that are like, hey guys, let's all get along, so that we can fix and solve the problems of the universe. So they all come with unique backgrounds and stories. Let's roll stereotypical human. Unless chat decides otherwise, but at this point in time, let's roll stereotypical human. And the reason for that is because you actually live the stereotype. You can see how, like, unnaturally stereotypical the human component is. It embodies everything about fantasy. Let's move on to roll Char. Oh, Char is interesting too, because Char provides an opportunity. They're military, very militaristic. So they provide a very unique storyline. Norn are actually also very interesting as well. Very Nordic type storyline. So in terms of Norse mythology, you can have conversations about that. Norse mythology. We weren't going to play in Asura. Sylvari are kind of neat too, but their storyline is actually very neutral. They kind of have an overarching understanding of what the whole problem is, and so they're trying to run around and pull people in to help solve the problem. So these ones are more isolated. This one is actually just weird. I actually don't really understand the connection of the Asura to the world. These 4 connect very well to the universe. So I don't know if there's a Guild Wars 2 expert out there somewhere. Tell me a little bit more about the Asura. Maybe they have a huge connection to the universe, but I feel like, well, like their technology and the things that they invent help these other things, but I feel like that could have just been placed in something else. So I just find the Asura to be strange. These 4 connect very well. All right, now some in chat's popping up, so we're going to just run the stereotypical human, because we can. Male or female. So again, I prefer female characters. It's not the aesthetic, it's the fact of, like, I really feel more connected to that strong female presence. I just don't know what it is. Maybe it's I have a daughter, love my wife. Maybe, I don't know, it's not in terms of identify as a male, so it's not something of where I'm projecting a gender identification, which is very interesting, because in terms of that, you have a new discussion with students about gender and representation of gender. I'm just also a very strong female ally. I believe females definitely deserve a lot more opportunities than what they get. I also find it interesting because as we go through, you'll see, hey, scantily clothed female, well, there's stereotype. More stereotype. It's kind of stereotype. Much better. So in this one, I actually really appreciate this. Definitely has that look of the engineer, of the fact that it's especially anatomy is more accurate, and in terms of that. So again, I'm delving into something I shouldn't even talk about because it's very kind of a viper pit there. But I really appreciate that. I find that the companies in games that do a very accurate job, and this goes for male too. Like I shouldn't, again, I Viper Pit. I shouldn't just focus on the female perspective because it's I could open a can of worms on the internet that Reddit will throw me into the fire for. Who knows? Lose my teaching license because I talked about females on a stream. But in this scenario, again, I prefer things that are realistic and the anatomy that is more realistic, and attire that suits what the role is. So, Guardian, very well done. Revenant is neat. Revenant's a really cool class. Okay, so we've got 9 classes in Guild Wars 2. So again, let's go away from aesthetic. So we got 9 classes in Guild Wars 2, and each kind of play differently. There isn't roles really. It's kind of how you want to play. So you've got your engineer is your gadgets and traps. So I like Guild Wars 2 right now because this has changed a little bit. Melee or range, so I can hit things or I can be at range. I love the engineer. I haven't played one at high level, but I just really like their kit, and I would really like to expand. I have a very high level Mesmer, so we won't probably be playing a Mesmer, but they do favor range, and they have illusions. They're very interesting because they provide interesting decision making because you use these illusions in a variety of different ways in order to change what's happening. They're a class that I liked a lot in Guild Wars 1 as well. Elementalist is interesting, very flashy. We could probably play an Elementalist just for flashy. Necromancers are neat. They have pets. You don't get to control them very well. That's kind of a criticism I have of that. Ranger is a lot better if you want pets because Rangers have a lot more in terms of pet direction. They showcase that, so that's good. Thieves are really neat. They are very melee, but this acrobatic combat, really, really good animations. Warrior is your standard warrior, beats things up. Guardians are neat because they are very supportive. They have some builds that are very offensive too. And a Revenant is really neat as well because they are someone who's tied to the past and they can bring in the presence of those heroes of the past. So they're kind of psychic-y. They're really cool. All right. Anyone in chat, if you want to put a class in, I will play absolutely anything. I have played them all before. I enjoy most of them. Some more than others. And again, if there is no one in chat, as there usually is no one in chat, that's okay. Chat explodes when I play competitive games like Overwatch. Oh, by the way, if those that are here, and if you are listening, next week is my League of Legends week. I will probably be spending all week trying to not be terrible, and I would like to do student games as well. So I would like to invite students to come on and play. We'll talk about that on Discord as the day gets closer, but next Friday will be my last stream as the school year comes to a close. I really hope that this is something that I can continue. I know maybe it'll be part of the classes. Engineer, I love it. It's my favorite. I also like it because I don't have to change a whole bunch. So notice the outfit changes. So Ranger is best. Ranger is quite good. I do enjoy the Ranger. And PvP, I haven't played a ton of Guild Wars PvP recently, but it's quite good. This is something I do like though. So if we're talking about aesthetic, Guild Wars is very good at changing aesthetic. So you can adjust things, you can have different hairstyles. Obviously different skin, color, hair color. You can make it like white hair. They do a really good job of everything there. Let's go earthy brown. No, rusty brown. Let's stay with that. Height and physique, so that's nice. I like to shrink a little bit. I play smaller characters in other games, so it's just something where, based on camera, it's preference. Physique we can change. That's the nice thing. I wish we had a little more control over physique, so we had the opportunity to scale things that I wanted to scale. But this is nice. This is a nice thing. So you can add as much muscle as you want. So I don't know. That looks pretty good. Let's roll with it. You can change armor dyes. Like this is a big thing. I can change my colors, items, etc. So again, I really like Guild Wars 2. I'm going to put on my giant backpack because I carry hard. This is going to be me next week in League of Legends, right? Everyone else is going to fit inside of here, right? I'm going to have that spade for all the people that noobs I mow over. I haven't played League in so long, it's going to be awful. I'm going to get totally totally toasted, but whatever. It'll be fun. All right. So now we get into the storytelling element. So this is writing character creation. This is again why I like Guild Wars. Is we're starting a story. So you're building out your characters. Trouble may follow me, but I use what to overcome it. Am I charmed? Do I use dignity, or do I have ferocity? I like dignity. Dignity is usually, again, this is your value set. What do you believe? Now, this is how I play role-playing games. Some people just could care less. They're like, get me out of character creation. Crowns, sure, cool, move on. I spend way too long in character creation. My friends, I play games with still friends in my age. I'm not a young individual, although I feel young and hard out every day. It's something where they still give me a hard time. And look at that. See, I am not young and I still play games. It's a great hobby. As long as you keep it just as a hobby in that moderation piece, but it's to me, this is like reading a book. This is like watching a TV show. This is like watching a movie. Those little hobby components that you bring in is huge, but I'm reading. I get that kind of same stimulation as a movie or a TV show, so it's interesting. So now this is my background story. Was I a street rat, common folk, among the nobility? Now, in terms of an engineer, does being on the streets make sense? Not really. I could have done it. I like the common folk. This is something where I create the persona of someone who was a laborer on a farm and had to create gadgets and stuff to help out my family. So, biggest regret is that sister was a seraph. If you this is the military piece, and right, never recovered her body, never searched for my true parents. Pass up an opportunity to perform in the circus. So this is something I wish they would have done a better job of these ones. I like this one. This one's always good. So who do I reference in this is a value question. Who do I connect to a little bit more? So Grenth is a goddess, so you can now say that you're blessed by. So adds in a religious piece, so now you can have a conversation a little bit about religion. That's again a giant viper pit or rabbit hole. But I like this is because now I can think, so this is something, if I grew up on a farm, goddess of nature, earth, and growth, Meliandrew, cool. You do get special powers based on which one you pick. Not a big deal, right? So I love this part. This is the part where we get to name them. I'm going to call her Andrina Gearhart. So I like coming up with names. If you're like, how did you come up with that so fast? I've used it before, sorry. But I love coming up with names. I could spend hours on just formulating names.
The human race once ruled Tyria. Now, we struggle to hold our ground. We've been defeated, driven back, and broken. But we will not surrender. So many nations have fallen. Only Kryta still stands. Our faith is strong, despite the silence of the six gods. With courage, we'll make our stand in divinity's reach.
Hydrate. Something I don't do very well on stream.
I was born to common folk, just one among many. My friends and I don't seek attention or glory. It's hard enough making ends meet. But I believe we can still shape a brighter world out of the ashes of the past. Today, I stepped outside of divinity's reach to see the world. But when I arrived in Shaymore, the town was under siege by centaurs. Innocent villagers are in danger. Someone has to help. We can't go on living our lives in fear. I have to fight. I have to make a stand. This is my story.
Boom. Beautiful. Storytelling. Instantly, I have an understanding of what's happening. This is not the over. This is now my little slice of this piece, slice of, well, as you can see now, Kryta. But now, now I am starting that story. Again, piecing together the story. What does it do? Tutorial piece, there you go. Let's just not worry about it.
Everybody get to the inn. We can protect you at the inn.
So now we can go through a story, character interaction. I have to get to the end. Okay, camera control, thanks. I know how to do that. We're okay. Frame rate's a little rough. We're okay. We're gonna make it. It's beautiful. Again, I really hope my game does not crash, but it might. Great weather effects. Again, beautiful modeling. And that segues me perfectly into models. So I've learned a lot about modeling and animation over the past few months. It's been a focus of a skill of mine. And so now, as someone who understands games animation, this to me is now much more impressive. In terms of how to build the models, takes a long time. The other piece of this is that what I've learned is in terms of starting with simpler pieces and sculpting it out, understanding how to piece together, create faces, edges, vertices, and understanding those things. So there's a lot of technical pieces to animation. And so I find a lot of people who are creative, so we're just going to take a pause here. A lot of people who are creative people, but are really good at math, are like, oh, I better become an engineer, I better become a doctor or a physicist or something else. There is so much math behind just this model right here, just this shovel. It's impressive. And understanding how shape and geometry is really important. That's where really, if you understand that, animation is a great field, or modeling or things, because you need to have those things there, right? All right, now right here, racism. Okay. So in this scenario, they haven't spelled it out, but if I let this go on, this is something where I am condoning, right? I am condoning what that person is doing. That is completely terrible. So I'm going to report their name, right? And I'm going to have a conversation with this person. Okay, they may get really angry at me. Okay, and if they do, you can't see the chat, so my apologies. So the message that I sent this person with that highly racist name, and the big thing is too is that if you don't understand in the context, right, you got to read into it, right? So in this circumstance, I just said, excuse me, please don't use derogatory names such as that. It's highly offensive, not at all proper in the spirit of the game. Okay, so have I done my due diligence? Not really. Like, I wish I could do more, but I can't. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Like, I'm not a bystander. I'm not allowing that. That's ridiculous. That is crazy that something like that happened right on stream. But that I can't believe that something like that is still happening. Like, it just blows my mind. Blows my mind, team. So back to the game. So that's interesting how that happened right on there. So in this scenario, what else have I learned in animation? One thing that I've learned, and I've been watching a lot of different videos, so that's nice, different videos in terms of how do you approach this, right? So in that scenario, it's about blocking and creating pieces, right? And creating pieces of those things. So that's kind of an interesting thing here. So I had to respond to our wonderful friend, so I'm just leaving it at that. I have done everything I can in my power. Again, I wish I could do more. So as I was saying, blocking out animations. So if you watch a lot of the animations that are happening, so this walking animation is, one thing I learned is that you don't have to do everything at once, which was something that, as I've learned traditional animation, everything is kind of done frame by frame by frame. And so that provides, oh no! So that you kind of have to do everything all at once, right? Because you're going through each piece of the puzzle, right? So you make the first step, the second step, the third step, the fourth step, like you keep going through that piece. And so that component, I've learned you don't need to do that. Is the fact that I can pose each step and then I can switch between them. And those posings, right, that's definitely more of the interesting piece. Is in the fact that you can pose that. I'm going to switch that off so I don't have to look at it. Sickens me. So in terms of posing is the fact that I can do step 1 and then I can go all the way to step 2 and then go back and then change all of the bits and pieces to make step 1 to 2 a lot more fluid, and then loop between them. Looping between them is something I understood before, but now it becomes much more interesting, right? It becomes in the fact that, oh, like more complex scenes now don't seem as daunting. So that's something cool that I've learned, right? So blocking out animations is a really interesting thing. Building poses. Now I understand poses a lot more. In terms of 3D animation, I'm 2D animation. Yeah, gold medal. Reward systems. Oh man, I can go through a bunch of things with Guild Wars and their reward systems. So that's a very interesting thing in those, in terms of animation, things that I've learned. Showing it is very hard because there's still a lot of things that I need to work on as an educator and building out capacity in that circumstance. But I have to admit, it's something I love a lot more. I have a much more appreciation. And that was kind of something that happened to me when I started to make games, was the fact that the programming component and understanding that games are really complex. There's a lot of stuff going on there. So that's kind of interesting, right? Is in the fact that games are very challenging. Sorry, I'm just getting sucked in here to the exploding gunfire. So now that, especially with the complexity of the game, understanding the programming side, now I'm starting to develop the appreciation for the animation component. And boy, am I impressed with the fact that the people that can combine both. It's absolutely fascinating that that's a thing. So really, really cool. I can really see why games take so long. Auto attack, I'm going to keep shooting at a vulnerable person. So that's kind of an interesting piece. So again, this is a cool thing. So this is now the story component, right? So is the fact that we're understanding the Centaur attack. We know that this High Sage is a piece of that puzzle. The piece of this puzzle. So. Hide myself in his little bubble. Shoot away. One thing about Guild Wars 2, the start, that it's not a huge, I don't know, I wish I had more skills. I literally can just sit in this bubble and allow the game to play itself. That's not fun. So that's a little bit of a criticism, is that I know we're starting out and we don't have a lot of ability, but really one button and affected as an auto attack button. Not cool, man. Better move out of that. Oh, didn't move fast enough. Should have dodged. So. Oh, out of range. Gotta move out of my bubble. So there's a little bit about the animation component. I try to throw a little bit about modeling and stuff during my streams. It's tough. It's a challenge to talk about because I need to learn a lot more. And that's a big thing as educators, is understanding we need to learn. And that really goes into terms of this whole theme of today's stream is about storytelling, First Nations ways of knowing, understanding and discussing racism and the components around it, is a lot of educating yourself and learning for yourself. We don't become good science teachers by not learning science, right? We have to go and learn those pieces and those nuances and the terms and everything, right?
Captain Thackeray brought you here personally.
So now we get introduced to Captain Thackeray, obviously. Again, that's a tie into old Guild Wars 1, so if you know that connection. So in this scenario, that's the big thing around animation and modeling for me, is I have a lot to learn before I can stream and talk more about it. I've learned a lot about edging, facing. I need to learn a lot about how the program can work for me, and I don't want to fight the program. Software, the biggest component, so I've done a lot of reading and again, a lot of video watching, and Blender is coming out as one of the definite front runners. The new version of it looks absolutely fabulous. I'm really excited for that. Got a new pistol, so I might as well do it. And I got a new skill, yay. So, little tutorial tells me where to go, what to do. So that's a big thing with animation is now what I've learned is a lot of appreciation for how complex it is, and blocking out animation. And I really want to talk about that, is that for those that are starting, and this is a great message for my students too, those that are starting in the world of animation or even just digital art, is small can lead to big, right? Blocking out animations is something where you can create a set of pieces and then arrange those pieces in the way that makes your animation more fluid and more interesting. That was a really interesting thing. I watched a video of, I can't remember the name off the top of my head, it was a YouTube person who does a lot of model and animation work through Maya, and he's now starting to do a little Blender stuff, and that's how I found him, is because I was looking at Blender stuff. And so it was a little more interesting because it wasn't your typical tutorial video. So that was very interesting there. So modeling was good stuff. All right. Last topic as we play some Guild Wars as well. We'll probably just watch some Guild Wars because this is going to be a lot of talking. Gonna better hydrate before we get into this one. Discussions with students about race, culture, and how games facilitate this. We've brought it up quite a bit. But as you can see, there's definitely a big thing. So, as my wonderful friend keeps... I have to admit, this is the person who is actually handling this very well. They're very... they're not being rude about things. They just... Again, it's very interesting. They just don't understand. That's very, actually ties perfectly into what we're doing here, is how do we start those discussions? It's not something this would be something where I should have this discussion with this individual about my perceptions, and maybe that's something that it's hard to get into, because once you start down that path, you get kind of goaded into toxic behaviors. It happens a lot in games like League of Legends. And so in terms of having these discussions about race and culture, utilizing games, there's a lot of negative examples in games. As you walk through this bridge, how many people of color do you see? This is the nation, by the way. It's very Eurocentric. And in terms of it, and I said like when you play human, it's very high fantasy, very much in terms of highly, again, colonized Eurocentric views, very stereotyped, very generalized, so becomes interesting in that fashion. So you can jump around. So Guild Wars is a great game. I really enjoy it. I'm not showcasing it very well, and I apologize. I definitely have to say I got threw off by that because I was not anticipating having to have that type of conversation. Oh, nice. Events. One thing I do really like about Guild Wars is these dynamic events. So every so often in certain places, certain events occur. And I can just run and gun. So as you can see, that's the interesting thing, is that the games we're playing are so highly Eurocentric in some circumstances that we just, again, have to open that dialogue up and talk about it. It just needs to be talked about. Because, again, as I said with the person that has the inappropriate name, they're stating it's not inappropriate. Very politely, I will give them that much. That's really cool. I wish you could kind of see the chat in that circumstance, but it's, I don't want to give away any personal information because I've learned a little bit from watching other streams. But in this scenario, it was something of, I don't think it's this. And it's like, okay, right? Now that's a conversation, and we need to open that dialogue of, okay, you may not think it is, but here's the context, right? It's understanding the context behind things like the N-word, things in terms of understanding the context behind calling someone a name or utilizing a name around people, right? It's a circumstance of you don't know who you're affecting until you affect somebody. And that understanding, I think, is the one thing a lot of people don't really understand a bunch, is that your action or inaction is usually, whether you mean it or not, that's the problem, is if you don't know that you're hurting somebody, then that's ignorance, right? That's where you need to make sure that, and it's not using, ignorance is not being used in a derogatory sense here, it's used in a sense where you need to develop your understanding of that situation. So now what's the interesting thing about Guild Wars 2, just to keep on topic with a game as well, because like I said, I'm not showcasing as well as I'd like to, because this is a game I do enjoy, and does have great story, is now I travel between areas and discover the land. Oh, hey, look, there's another First Nations connection. It's the discovery of the land, the use of the land, having conversations, right? We have very Eurocentric agriculture. How could we have conversations about colonization, and in terms of like, oh, what was the land like before this? I'm sorry, game is just, they have so much connection to this. So now this is developing a story. Now you're understanding your character, and as I play through these zones and play through these experiences, I start to build more of the story. I start to develop more of, well, okay, what's happening in the bigger scale. So you got the small scale and you got the big scale. And I think that's really interesting in terms of games. Why a massive multiplayer game like Guild Wars can do this is because, A, their world is always growing, because that's, as a massive multiplayer game, if you don't grow, you shut down. Rip Wildstar. So that's a conundrum. So the story is always evolving and growing, but also that's the big story, right? The little story, I now can work on my character, and that's the unique thing, is that I have the big overarching story, what everyone's a part of, but I also have the little story that's just for me, and I think that's kind of cool, right? I'm not always just under the impression of the problem of the world. I feel more in tune with this game because there's a piece of my story is injected in here, and I can make that story whatever I want. It becomes less prominent as you move up, so that's unfortunate, but I think it's very interesting that it starts out that way, is that I'm this fledgling adventurer off to see the land. We've got issues in places, and I'm going to go solve problems because that's what heroes do. No arrows to lead the way. Well, there used to not be, but now there is. Like, there's icons in the top here that showcases where I'm supposed to go and how I'm supposed to get there. So I didn't finalize Daya in her farm. Sorry, Daya. So relates back to that storytelling and opening of discussion. Right now that we're kind of coming to the end of the stream, that's the big piece, is that we've got this ability to create story, and within story we can create dialogue, and within dialogue we can create understanding. It all starts with skill. It has nothing, yay me, it is nothing to do, bag. It is nothing to do with knowledge components. It has everything to do with acquiring skills. And then the knowledge comes after skills. So once I know how to develop my story, I can start learning other pieces. I can start learning knowledge and facts to incorporate into my stories. Alright, so this game tells me to go help Fisher Travis, so I will. Again, that never used to be there. Oh, sweet. Because I unlocked my mount, I get to use my mount? Sorry. Okay. Isn't this the coolest thing ever? This is probably one of the biggest reasons I got the expansions for Guild Wars 2, is because I was like, I really want a mount. And they are cool mounts. The mounts in Guild Wars 2 are absolutely phenomenal. They're tons of fun. So, I didn't know I got to use my mount for new characters now that I've unlocked them. That is the coolest thing ever. Whee! Big jump. Big jump. Oh man, that is... you learn something new every day. Wow, that makes leveling a lot faster. I'm going to go and enjoy some of my alts now. Again, skill... we need more skills. Come on, Bernadette. Give me at least 3 or 4. We got limited action sets here anyway. So how do we open up the dialogue? Now, a game like this helps open up dialogue because of the Eurocentric viewpoint, but what about Call of Duty? Right? How do we start that dialogue with Call of Duty? Grand Theft Auto, I don't like the game. Everyone loves it. I'm not a fan. Part of it, I'm not a fan of the gameplay either. Just doesn't jive with me, but just that type of scenario is like, what message are you sending, right? Because now, if no one is around to discuss some of the issues around such as a Grand Theft Auto franchise, what is that person going to take away as their perceptions? And that's a large issue, right? That is a large issue. What's unfortunate is I won't get to play long enough to show off some of the cool gadgets that the engineer gets. They get some cool little turrets and things. So that's my conundrum. And I know a lot of people are in this case, and then everyone's like, oh, look for resources and etc. But I feel like some of it is, yeah, resources in order to educate myself and understand that. But I think part of it, to be dead honest, is just not being a bystander. And I never am, which is a good thing. It takes a lot of courage not to be a bystander, but also spreading the message of not being a bystander, speaking out, making sure you're discussing things, right? I think that's very important. I think that is very important. So they're tough discussions, and like I said, it's highly sensitive. It's very difficult discussions to have with people. So I finished that one. Now I get to move up this one. Notice they have some flow. That's kind of nice. The discussions, yeah, again, are definitely challenging. A lot is information, is developing a skill, is understanding how do I look for information. Then from there is finding the correct information. And forming positive opinions, forming positive perceptions, right? Having that discussion about privilege and understanding what privilege is. What type of privilege do you have? Where does it fit? How do you fit? And I think just understanding that the world would be such a better place if we just stopped hating on each other and started just accepting the fact that people are different, and that because of that difference we're allowed to do great things. Right? I tell my students all the time, like, they always make fun of each other, and in that's like, oh, I make fun of them because I love them. It's like, that's the weirdest way to show that you actually care about somebody, is to make fun of them, right? And people who get it, and now that's a tough thing, because I know in younger groups, and I've heard this, maybe I could be wrong, but I have heard this happen, so hopefully it was an isolated incident, but like, there's bullies out there that start using that of like, oh, I'm just picking on them because I like them. Well, no, that's not how you get the attention of a person if that's what you're seeking. But that's what they are looking for, is attention. And someone who names themselves as such in a game, that's what they're looking for. They are looking for attention. They want someone to call them out on it. They want to have that conversation, and usually it's a much ruder conversation. So I'm happy that the individual that I reported earlier was a lot nicer about things, but still, it's the lack of understanding, is the fact that, like, what's wrong with that? I don't see what's wrong with it. What are you who are you to tell me what's right and what's wrong? Right? And it's just, I'm a concerned citizen. I just hate the fact that with the world we have to use derogatory terminology in order to get a rise out of someone. It's just, what's the point? There is none. There is no point to it. So, what do you do? Biggest thing, as mentioned, just don't be a bystander, folks. For anyone watching, I really appreciate anyone who is watching. Thank you for. But the biggest message that I can send today is just don't be a bystander. If you're unsure, it's best just to speak up than it is to step back. Right? Got a new skill. Still got a long way to go here, team. So hopefully everyone's enjoyed today's stream. I actually have really enjoyed discussing this and reflecting on my personal belief and understanding. I should actually stay on that. Yeah, I'll just leave it at that. We'll have a nice blue sky backdrop for the ending convo. It's tough. It's really hard, and students, they need us. They need us to have the conversations. Have the conversations about games. Talk about the things that they like. Explore their passions and go. When you say something like the N-word, when you utilize derogatory terminology, and you're just like, what's wrong with that? It's not derogatory. I'm not hurting anybody. You don't know that. And that's the thing, is that if you can blatantly say, I'm not hurting anybody, that's completely false in a lot of contexts. And so you have to make sure that in those discussions you highlight that, is that you just don't know who you're offending. You don't know. Oh, of course I know. I know everything. When that comes up often, it's like, well, no, like, you don't understand that someone might take offense to something that you've said. And we really have to watch. And it's hard. It's hard to think about those things. You shouldn't have to think so much when we speak. But the problem is that's how we understand it to be systemic, right? It's part of the system. Because we have to think about it. If it weren't part of the system, right, it would be so much easier to have these discussions. But because racism is so systemic, and because we have especially like gamer stigma, that's another, like, it's definitely, again, around privilege and stuff, it's not as nearly on the same level as racism. But these are types of things where you're creating perception around somebody based on either false facts or on opinions you have derived from events that may be inconclusive, incorrect, or untrue. And that becomes a large conundrum, right? Again, the biggest thing we can do, and the biggest thing is talk. And on that note, folks, I've done a lot of it. I've been talking for nearly 2 hours straight, and thank you so much for coming out. I really hope you took something away from it. I really hope that there were some good tidbits around providing understanding through First Nations ways of knowing, through storytelling. Huge proponent of it. Again, First Nations culture is very interesting. I'm very proud to be an ally of that, and I'm proud of ally of our people of color and minority I'm proud of being human, right? We have the opportunity to be human beings. We're not mosquitoes, or we're not any other being, right? We get to interact with them in a very unique way. The universe has allowed us the opportunity to be human beings. So stop hating on other humans. It's not worth it. Mr. Brown from Brooks Composite High School, thank you so much for your time, everybody. See ya.